The year is 1893, and on a chilly day in October, you finally arrived at your destination, the famed Windy City of Chicago. You're here to visit the World's Fair, an event that will be remembered for all its glory for many years to come. What you don't know is that the smooth-talking gentleman you just met on the street will also go down in history, but not for anything good. This man with a grand handlebar mustache, who's sporting a rather dapper bowler hat, will become known as one of America's most cunning and murderous scammers. You're the prey, and he's the predator, and you are soon going to experience a nightmare beyond anything you could imagine. You've just unwittingly agreed to spend the night in his demon trap, what will become known as a real-life house of horrors, aka Murder Castle. To give you an insight into how this guy worked, let's carry on with this fictional meeting, which is based on true events. The man you've just met introduced himself as H.H. Holmes, although what you don't know is that his real name is Herman Webster Mudgett. He's just 32 years old, but while still young, he's been through a lot and done a lot of bad things. He's smartly dressed, you could say immaculately dressed, a fop or a dandy as they might have said back then. He's articulate and intelligent and comes across as a man of the world, sophisticated, and as you've just found out, charitable. What a kindness to invite an out-of-towner to stay at his house. This is what you see anyway. The truth is, this man comes from a working-class background he'd rather deny ever happened. Like many serial killers, he was beaten by a violent father and picked on by a mother who took her devoutness a little too far. He took his anger out on animals and may have even practiced some amateur dissection on them. Mr. Holmes married young at just age 16, and a few years later he enrolled at the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. He studied anatomy, which will serve him well in his criminal future. He was unsettled though, and it seems he always strayed to the dark side. His wife soon left after he took his hand to her once too often. While there were rumors he might have had something to do with the disappearance of a young boy, this remains a rumor. What is true is that while working with dead bodies when studying anatomy, he began making false insurance claims on those bodies. He might even have experimented on some bodies, but we can't be sure of that. In short, he went from job to job after that. He married again while not even divorced to the previous wife, and carried on with his life as a trickster. The likely reason he left for Chicago was because while working in a drugstore, a boy who he'd prescribed drugs to died. Throughout his life, people around him would go missing or mysteriously die. This doesn't bode well for you. Now we're back in the street and you've just been invited by Dr. Henry H. Holmes, who claims to be a pharmacist, to stay at his house. To your surprise though, this is not just a house. This building takes up almost an entire block on Chicago's 63rd and Wallace Streets. Wow, you think. This erudite man of high esteem must have made a ton of money in the medical profession. You could say he did, but not in the way you'd imagine. His business wasn't saving lives, it was taking them, or at least exploiting the dead. This house is kind of ugly, and Dr. Holmes tells you he's been renovating as of late, hoping to turn it into the World's Fair Hotel. It's just about done, but you don't see any guests yet. There are some people milling around and others working in a drugstore, but the place seems eerily quiet. By the way, from that drugstore, Holmes would market fake cures for alcoholism and then also say he'd had tapped in a miracle spring. This water, he said, could cure all kinds of ailments. The pump led right to the drugstore, but Holmes had actually just illegally tapped into the water mains. He tells you there are over 50 rooms and proceeds to take you to one of them. You must be suffering from the enervating travails of travel, he says to you, which you don't quite understand. Hey, you spent most of your childhood helping out your pop on the pig farm. Perhaps I can offer you an inebriant. An anodyne for the wary traveler? You stare at him blankly. Would you like a drink? He says. Okay, why not? You reply, ashamed of your pitiful intelligence. You now hate pigs. You take the drink, a special cocktail he tells you, something he created just for the World's Fair. You put down your bags and start to drink. A tonic, he tells you. Or shall we call it a tincture? He says you'll soon be refreshed, ready for the resplendence of what awaits you at this fair. This trip could not have been any better, you think. Who said city folk weren't kind? Your eyes feel heavy, and you tell Dr. Holmes you might want to rest for a while. Sleep, he whispers. You'll get some rest. Tomorrow is a big day for you. You wake up in the middle of the night with a bit of a headache. Your bags are gone, so you assume the kind doctor has just stored them somewhere for you. You're gasping for water, and so decide to make a visit to the bathroom. It's hard to see in the dark, and there are few lights turned on. You follow a set of stairs that are to the right of the door, only when you get to the bottom of them, there's just a wall. Strange, you think? Maybe he didn't finish that renovation. You walk back up to the landing and try to walk the other way when again you find some winding stairs. You walk to the bottom of them and there are two doors. You try one and behind it is a wall. This guy really needs to fire some contractors, you think. You try the next door and just as you step inside it, it closes behind you. When you try and open it, you find it's locked. In this room, there are no windows. You bang on walls and it seems they're very thick. It's so stuffy in this room. There's hardly any ventilation at all. Then suddenly you smell something, like gas. It seems to be coming from a small grate. What the hell? Then you notice a kind of door fixed to the floor, like a trap door. You open that and it seems there's some kind of chute. If there's a gas leak, you better get out of the room, so you climb into the chute. Only when you get to the end of that chute, you're confined in a room just a bit bigger than a coffin. You hear a locking sound above you. There's nowhere for you to go. You can't breathe. And that's it, you're dead. What might have happened after this, when Dr. Holmes was sure you were dead, is the coffin room opened at the bottom and you fell into another room in the basement. In this room, he has his tools: knives, saws, scalpels, acids. He has his workbench and other chutes that lead to a lime pit and a crematorium. That's where some of your bones will later be discovered. You made the mistake of staying with a man who would later say, "I was born with the very devil in me. The inclination to murder came to me as naturally as the inspiration to do right comes to the majority of persons." How many people did he kill? It's hard to say. He might have killed 200 people. He confessed to 27, but evidence for only 9 murders were ever found. In that basement of his, there were signs that he'd been hacking apart people for a long time, and not only for insurance purposes. Police believed he might have tortured some people before he killed them. They found the tools, saw, and the blood. He might have burned people alive in some rooms because police discovered a kind of flamethrower hidden in some walls, and those walls were packed with asbestos so the whole building wouldn't catch fire. They found other rooms with moving walls and no windows, where he may have simply starved people. In some of those rooms, they found peepholes. This is what the press would later call some of those rooms: asphyxiation chamber, no light with gas connections, blind room, sealed room all bricked in, 5-door room, and the dummy elevator for lowering bodies. We guess you found your way into the black closet. Maybe the worst find was something that looked like a torture rack. You see, Holmes was always the experimenter. He had created something called the elasticity determinator, which was basically a medieval rack a person could be stretched on. Holmes believed he could make a giant. He could slowly stretch a person and they'd become taller. How did this fiend evade arrest for so long? Well, firstly, the name change helped. After doing that, he could no longer be linked to his former scams. This was the 19th century. A man could disappear and reinvent himself. It was also later said that Holmes knew a lot about the law. He was ahead of the police. But a con artist's greatest skill is to make people believe they're not what they are, far from it. Holmes was skilled in the art of rhetoric. He used language that might impress someone whose education wasn't the best. He was also a skilled hypnotist. He was a manipulator, and appearances made him look as if he had money, lots of it. To the people in the street, he was a success story, a man of great intellect who could be trusted. If you're gonna scam people, wear a suit. He wasn't just glib and intelligent though, he was pleasant on the eye. One of his main schemes was to induce women to fall for him. They thought they'd met a well-educated, handsome fellow with bags of cash. Their chips were in. But it was he who would be taking them to the cleaners. Well, to the lime pit. Sometimes he might even strip the bodies of their flesh and sell the skeletons to medical labs. It's thought he lured plenty of young women to his castle, and many never made it out. But he was in debt with creditors and they wanted their cash. So he could pay them, he set fire to his castle and then tried to claim the insurance. An investigator named F.G. Cowie was on to Holmes, and he knew something of his sketchy past, and he soon became suspicious of Holmes's insurance claim as well as discovering other frauds. Holmes then got out of Chicago. How he was eventually caught is quite complicated. In 1894, police discovered the burned body of a Mr. B.F. Perry in a house on the street in Philadelphia. He was an inventor, and it was assumed that he might have blown himself up. That's what the crime scene indicated. In his pockets were letters, and they seemed to suggest that he'd come to Philadelphia from St. Louis and his wife would come to meet him soon. Then sometime later, the Fidelity Mutual Life Association of Philadelphia got a letter, and it stated that the dead man was actually Benjamin F. Pitzel, and he was insured, and a Dr. H.H. Holmes was making a claim for $10,000. He listed the distinguishing marks and the body was dug up to see if they matched. They did, and Holmes got his cash. Holmes was apparently acting on behalf of the Pitzel family. Pitzel, by the way, had been Holmes's friend and partner in crime. Only a little later and things would come undone for Holmes. You see, he had spent some time in jail in another state for fraud. This was a man with his fingers in many crooked pies. While in jail, he told his cellmate of a scam and said, "If you help me get a lawyer, I'll let you in on the scam." He said his name was Howard. That scam involved faking the death of a B.F. Pitzel by dumping a body and then making an insurance claim on that dead body. He said, "If you help me out now, I'll give you some of the $10,000. It all gets crazy here because it seems Holmes double-crossed his partner, Mr. Pitzel, and did actually kill him. Why share the cash? Miss Pitzel was in on it too. We mean in on the scam. She was told that her husband would just hide. Holmes told her there was no need to go with him and identify the body. She would have seen it was really her spouse. He just kept telling her that her beloved husband was hiding and he'd take her to him soon. The cellie was never paid for his help. And so to get revenge, he told the cops about this guy called Howard and the scams he'd been doing. The cops knew it was Holmes they were after, and they soon found him in Boston. He was arrested for insurance fraud and the murder of Pitzel. Holmes at first admitted to the fraud but denied the murder. He was also wanted in another state for stealing a horse, of all things. Holmes told the cops lots and lots of tall tales. He was trying anything to get out of what he'd done, and at one point even offered a guard $500 if he could hypnotize him. The guard said no. The cops also wanted to know the whereabouts of Miss Pitzel and her 5 kids. Holmes said he knew but kept lying. At different times, he said they moved to the UK, gone to South America, and were in Detroit. He'd actually murdered 3 of them. Miss Pitzel had left them with Holmes at one point, and later he told her he'd taken them to Indianapolis and they were staying with a widow. They were very safe, he told her, and then said her husband was now waiting for her in Montreal. All lies. He'd killed 3 of them. Mr. Pitzel's body was exhumed another time, and it was discovered that he hadn't died in an explosion but had been poisoned with chloroform. What's so ironic about this is that the insurance company believed Holmes had defrauded them. But for once in his life, the body was actually the real body. Now, it wasn't fraud though, it was murder. Holmes was eventually found guilty and hanged, but only for the murder of Mr. Pitzel in Philadelphia. He'd admitted to many more murders, and the police were well aware of what went down in the murder castle, but that's not what got him in the end. Had that cellie not told the cops Holmes's murder castle might have got a lot more guests who never left. He had one request before he was hanged. Dr. Holmes asked if he could be buried and encased in thick concrete. He didn't want anyone messing with his body after he'd passed. In his own words, he said he wanted the cement case to insure his body against the vandalism or scientific curiosity of ghouls. He didn't get what he wanted because he was exhumed in 2017 after rumors circulated that he'd actually escaped and not been hanged. The rumors were wrong. It was him, and his teeth proved it. What a crazy story, huh? Now go watch another one of our videos. Click this one right here, or click on this one. Pick one and click right now.